Hello, my name is Andres Villalba and I'm a teacher of English. I would like to share my experience with flipped learning with all of you.
You can see in this picture a typical situation, a traditional dissertation, where the teacher explains a topic, presents the concepts, the contents for the whole group of students, and all of the students have to understand and get to know the concepts at the same time. Then there's usually an individual space in the form of homework, home assignment, and this in fact is the hardest stuff for our students because they have to deal with the activities, with the questions, with the tasks alone without the teacher's help. So, flipped learning, sometimes referred as a flipped classroom because there are some differences between flipped class, flipped learning, and flipped education. It is a pedagogical approach that in fact inverts the traditional method of the teacher who is leading a class. This is a learner-centered approach because students are given materials and they have to fulfill the tasks prior to a lesson, to the class activity, usually at home or at the laboratory in the school, in the computer room. And this technique proposes what is generally considered the more traditional class work at home and extended homework or class practice in school. So there is an inversion of spaces and roles. So with flipped learning you will surely have this picture. This is a flipped class. The individual's home space that was in a traditional method, the homework at home, it becomes an activity where the teacher is present. The teacher is present in the form of a video or a digital material. This is what today we know as asynchronous virtual classes. Then after students can work on their own in their individual space, in class there is time for deeper learning interaction with the group space, the teacher working with all the students. This is what today we know as interactive synchronous virtual space. Flipped learning came into use around 2012 with the work of two science teachers, Bergmann and Aaron Sams. I personally met Jonathan in 2016 when he came to Misiones. Both teachers were interested in the best way to use face-to-face lesson time with their students, so they investigated a way to present concepts, the theory, the formulas before class time. So in class, in the school, they had more time to do the interaction, the put into practice of all those concepts. There are different ways to flip a classroom. The best recommendation is to set pre-lesson content. You prepare the material in advance. Tasks should raise questions, they should spark interest, they have to be motivating. Then you make use of technology. This is just a suggestion, a recommendation. If you are not familiar with the use of videos, editors, virtual platforms, collaborative boards, you can use online resources. For example, you can recommend your students to go to a web page or prepare a digital file in the form of a PDF document or a PowerPoint presentation. Then you set up expectations before flipping your class, so all students know that they have something to do at home, in the laboratory, in the computer room, in the school, because in class they are going to go on working, so they understand that they need to do their part in order for the teacher to help them with the tasks. At the beginning, of course, like many activities, it demands put it into practice and make it a habit, yes, for our students to get used to working with flipped classroom. And then make students accountable and ensure that the expected work has been completely built for comprehension with future tests, evaluation of all they have dealt with. Yes, all the activities that they have done in the flipped classroom, they are going to use it in an evaluation, consolidation stage, or a final production maybe. As teachers of English, we can use flipped learning to improve, enhance, and have extra practice for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. As I told you before, if you use technology, all these activities can be more motivating. If you are not familiar with technology, you can ask your students to help you with the apps. There are mobile phones, the projector, and all that. So for reading, for example, you can use a web page, a platform, or an app to read the text and change words for pictures, and you can ask your students to create a comic. They can create, recreate, adapt, modify characters' descriptions. They can read the text and then present a mind map. Yes, remember that all this happens in the individual space. So students are helped by the teacher. The teacher in the form of a video or a prepared material. Then for writing, you can present something, a text, a video, an audio, just an audio, and tell your students to retell it through a letter, through a mail. So they are practicing writing. Put the text, the different sections in order. Yes, this is a typical activity that we do in the class. So you are flipping the space and students are doing it at home. Then for listening, you can make your students listen to, for example, a story or a narrative, and they have to create a timeline. There are many resources for timelines in internet. They can answer questions because in class your students are going to be evaluated, or you are going to check that they have done the activities at home. And you can use flipped learning to present songs, rhythms, poems, so they work with that, and then in the class you reinforce the lesson, the activity, the contents. And for speaking, you can present a video. You can, as a teacher, you can record yourself and ask your students to listen to you and retell the story, or you can ask them to give their opinions, agreeing, disagreeing with what you have said. As regards participation improvement, there are many recommendations to the second part of flipped learning. Remember that flipped learning consists of two spaces: the individual space, with the teacher explaining something on a video, on a file, and then the group space, where the teacher works in interaction with the students. And with this question of pandemic, that group space has been translated to virtual classrooms. Yes, I don't know if you use Zoom for meetings, Teams, Meet, Google Classroom, etc. So, video conferencing can present huge challenges, technical problems, our students' personality, if they are shy, for example, if they don't want to show their home environment. However, virtual class meetings can be highly interactive and motivating. Students can engage in the question and answers, they can meet in small groups, there are conference pages where you can break out the groups. Zoom can do that. I use one which is very nice, which is called Go Branch, that has the appearance of a classroom. Yes, I can show it to you in another course if you like it. And then you can use other strategies, for example, interviewing the teacher, interviewing other classmates. Well, the question of interaction is very important, not only because of the content or academic importance or situation. It is very relevant to keep our students' confidence and emotional health. Yes, I will show you a video where I interact with my students. We are talking about famous places in the world, and I try to make my students participate. And it doesn't matter if they participate in English or Spanish. At least we are laughing, yes, having a good time, at least a short good time, yes. Take a look at it. ¿Se les ocurre?
Tengo una idea, pero no sé si es la correcta.
A ver,
creo que la construyeron para las invasiones, antes que lleguen las invasiones.
Para proteger el imperio chino.
Sí, muy bien, sí. ¿Se acuerdan contra quién? Un señor
Mongolia
muy bien.
y Manchuria, algo así era, no me acuerdo.
Era contra los mongoles, ¿sí?
Sí.
Well, there is a big question about when to use synchronous or asynchronous learning. Synchronous communication, well, this is what we do when we use, for example, Zoom, Meets, Google Classroom, yes, online communication with our students. The recommendation for synchronous communication is to have very well prepared activities, full of interaction, because otherwise our students will get very bored with the activities or with the session in general. You know that in China, for example, video conferences shouldn't last more than 20 minutes, because of a question of sight health. Yes. For example, as regards expectations, I always tell my students that as they are going some activities, then they will have an evaluation. I use evaluation because I need to know how my students are progressing. So I prepared some evaluations and I used a lot of different strategies. Fíjense que en el vocabulario nosotros habíamos visto algunas materias. Ustedes me dicen qué significan estas materias, porque ustedes saben. English,
Inglés.
music,
Música.
maths.
Matemática.
Muy bien, se puede decir maths cortito o mathematics, ¿sí? Después hay una que, fíjense como en Europa, en Estados Unidos, ya era vieja esa materia, pero acá en la Argentina hace poquito comenzó. Information and Communication Technology. ¿Qué es?
Informática.
Informática, comunicación y
Tecnología.
tecnología, ¿sí? Las TIC que le llaman. Then, asynchronous communication, that is what happens with flipped learning, because we are sending activities for our students to do them in advance. They are very good, very useful, because our students can respond to the activities at their own pace. Some students are faster, others maybe slower, so they can rewatch the videos as many times as necessary. Designing interactive virtual meetings. For dynamic and interactive communication, I have some recommendations for you. For example, to boost engagement, do a social emotional check-in. You should always ask your students how was the week, how they felt after the weekend. You can ask them if they are all feeling well, if they are taking care of their health, yes, if they do exercises, a gym, for example, at home. Then you can incorporate movement, you can ask for a high five, you can invent something, for example, make them raise their hands, put them down, stand up, sit down, yes? You can recreate movement in your sessions. In this picture you can see that they are greeting. I asked my students to greet the cams for a picture, because after each class we send pictures to the head teacher. In this video you can see another way of interacting with the students and to check if they had a good moment. Yes. Bueno chicos, ¿qué les pareció todo? ¿Todo bien?
Re bien, sí.
Sí, bueno. ¿Pueden activar sus cámaras un ratito? Así saco una foto para mandarla al director.
Espere que no, se me apagó el mouse.
Bueno. Pero solo si Firo activa su cámara, si no, no activa.
Sí.
Ciro apenas está vivo. ¿Vos crees que puede activar su cámara?
Fío, dije.
¿Qué iba a decir?
Entendí Ciro, disculpame, soy el metido.
Y... bueno.
No, Ciro está vivo.
¿Está Ciro ahí? Sí. Bueno chicos, les mando un saludote. Pórtense bien, no vayan al boliche muy de seguido y abríguense porque en estos días está haciendo mucho frío.
Sí.
Bye bye.
Bye.
This is just a summary of the of the presentation of the flipped learning methodology with some recommendations. You know that we are going to have a meeting, a web meeting, so I will ask you to think about questions, doubts that you would like to share, comments and suggestions, because I know that many of you have already experienced flipped learning. I would like to know how it worked, and you know that if this video, this is the way I work with my students. You know that if this video went too fast, or you have doubts, you can re-watch it or pause it, and you will also have a PDF file of this presentation at the end of the course, so everything will be ready for you. I hope you have enjoyed this session. See you in the web meeting, and bye bye.